Singer-songwriter Breland is with us today. His debut album, Cross Country, is available right now. You may have heard Throw It Back with Keith Urban, but this guy is climbing to the top very, very quickly. His first really big video and song went viral for Don't Touch My Truck, which I heard a few years ago. Excited to have Breland with us. Here we go.
From the farm that Johnny Cash called the center of the universe, this is the Jack Vale Podcast.
I like Willie and I like Waylon. You want me to ride? You gotta play some George Jones and Conway Twitty. Just keep it country cause I'm here, Billy. Like a little bit of hip-hop, give me some Man in Black. You can kiss my cash.
I'm not even talking about that. I think that from here's what I think is actually happening. This be on the record. All right, we can be on the record. I don't know anything.
Let's just cut into it.
Look, man.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a crazy way to start this. Okay, well, here's my thought. All right, I think that Taylor Swift and the NFL are in business together. And I think it makes a lot of sense that they would be in business together. And I think that the relationship that she is in right now is strictly publicity. And you may be asking, why does Taylor Swift need publicity? Why does she whatever else? But if you're looking at the NFL as a corporation, as a global brand, and all of the things that they have tried to do to be able to reach every market, the one market that they can't reach is the one market that Taylor Swift reaches better than anyone else on the planet, right? There is no other person or entity that has more sway over 12 to 25-year-old girls than Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
The NFL can't really get much bigger among us, right? Like among dudes 18 to 45, you're not going to see more men, you're not going to get more guys on board. You either like football or you don't. Like if you don't like football as a dude, by the time you're 30, you're probably never going to get into it. Like that's fine. But so where do they grow? They grow internationally and they grow among women and younger people.
So you don't think that guys are going to get into football because Taylor Swift is into it now?
I think some guys might, and I think whoever those guys are, I think the NFL is certainly going to go for them here. But look, man, Taylor Swift just, she's got $1 billion tour. She's now a billionaire herself. She's putting up $100 million for a movie that people already paid to see the show, and now they're going to go pay more money to go see the movie. Like, you know what I mean? Like we're talking like this is a level of pop star that we haven't really seen before.
Yeah,
and if we can get her plugged in with the most eligible bachelor that the NFL has, good-looking guy, just won a Super Bowl. He's the face of a bunch of different brands, pretty clean image, but not too clean. Like now you get the two of them in rooms together and you see what happens immediately.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether this is an angle for like, okay, maybe 2 years down the line, we're going to do a special Super Bowl halftime production or, that Taylor does or whatever. I know she's theoretically turned down the Super Bowl already in the past. That's what the rumors say. Yeah. But like, if I had to guess, I think that there is a handshake agreement and or an actual written up contract where they say, hey, for the rest of this season, can y'all just be around each other and hang out?
That's fascinating.
Then we have the permission to broadcast all of these primetime games that the Chiefs are in that you will be at. And then we know that we're going to have a certain amount of viewership. We'll be able to charge a certain amount of marketing dollars. We're going to have a certain amount of people now buying these jerseys, coming to see these games, who are going to be invested over the course of the season. And theoretically, even after the relationship is over, some of those people will become actual football fans and buy into football even outside of Taylor's involvement in it. The NFL is a multi-billion dollar organization. That's the smartest move they could possibly make. And I think there's money in it for Taylor Swift to be able to say, hey, yeah, I'll date Travis Kelce for 6 months and y'all can promote me, and then they could give her, $250 million that she could put in the bank and work on her next album that's going to be called, 4th and 12 or whatever.
And we are talking to Breland today. This episode, welcome. Co-host Mac Hereford.
What's up, buddy?
Breland, man, thanks for coming.
It's good to be here, man.
I appreciate this so much. Are you a Johnny Cash fan? Like, are you?
Yeah,
a little bit.
a little bit. I mean,
a little bit. Okay.
I didn't grow up listening to a whole lot of his music. I grew up listening to like primarily gospel music, though I know he's done a couple gospel records too. But yeah, I grew up listening to a lot of gospel, and then I started getting into country as I got a little older, just personally. And so I've done a little research on Johnny, and obviously his career. I mean, he's like one of those guys like. I love talking about like music and sports and the intersection between them. Like you've got certain people that come into a sport that like make it a lot bigger, and I feel like Johnny Cash is one of those guys within country music that, country music was still somewhat in its infancy when he first started putting music out, and then he becomes this national and global icon, even beyond just the music, but just at his image, what he stands for, the way he dresses, the way he talks, the way he's singing on these songs, really defines a whole era within country music. And I don't think you see any of what you're seeing right now with this current boom of everyone suddenly being interested in country music. You probably don't see any of that if you don't have somebody like a Johnny Cash, 60 years ago, literally paving the way.
Yeah, it's true. And I love the story. I love his story because later on in life, like there was this weird, like almost kind of a lull in the 80s and stuff, and then all of a sudden like his career was rejuvenated because of, what's his name? Rick Rubin.
Yeah.
And so then now he's working with like, 9 Inch Nails and the Chili Peppers and like all these collaborations that he had. And then his career like shot back up, and all of a sudden now he's like real and raw. And I want to say like his later music was probably my favorite, even more than like some of the early stuff that everybody knows.
Yeah.
I like those most recent songs. Yeah, we love it out here. It's like a kind of an iconic, cool place to be.
It's sick.
Knowing that he lived out here. So gospel primarily when you were a kid?
Yeah.
What was that? Why was that? Was that because of just your family and the way you were brought up?
My
did you have a personal interest?
They met in the Howard Gospel Choir back in the 80s.
That's sick.
Really?
And they, so I literally wouldn't be here if it weren't for gospel music, literally. But, they met in a gospel choir through the 90s, and even when I was a kid, early 2000s, they were putting out music together as a gospel duo. They're both like ordained ministers and lead worship at church.
Your mom and your dad?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think growing up, like, you're just around it. But also just musically, like, they didn't want me listening to a lot of secular music, growing up, and they didn't really keep any secular music in the house. So I would always get to school and people would be talking about whatever was popular, and I'm like, I don't know any of this. Like there's certain songs that like, there's certain songs like everybody knows this song, and I'm like, no, I don't. And I was kind of like out of it for a little while, and then I ended up going to a boarding school for high school, and so I was living on campus, and kids would like play games like, look at all these songs that he doesn't know. And so I was like, I need to do my due diligence so that this stops happening, because I love music, but I just don't have the same music education that everyone else did. That said, there's a bunch of songs that I knew that to me felt like massive hits that a lot of other people had never heard. So I just started kind of digging in, listening to a lot of different styles of music, doing my research on, the history of hip hop, the history of R&B soul, 14,
How old were you? 14 when you started that? Did you have to do it like behind their backs at all?
Yeah, just like in headphones. But yeah, I started realizing, like, honestly, I realized that all these different genres were more connected than I thought. The origins of country music and R&B and rock music, they all have the same origin. So when you go back in time, decades and decades before the people that we look at as the pioneers of these genres, you know, it all comes from, you know, jazz and Negro spirituals, literally, is in terms of like all of this Western music that we now listen to, that we classify in all these different ways, different genres. Like, it all comes from the same place. And so kind of being able to, as a musician, hear some of those similarities, I was like, oh, okay, well, all of these genres are really just about trying to tell certain types of stories. And then it's more of the instrumentation and the language that's used that makes us think about a song being a certain genre. But then the way that something is performed, you know, could change the whole definition of whether you hear it one way or another. And I think throughout high school, I was like, oh, okay, I started seeing that a little bit. And then, you know, in my own personal songwriting and musical exploration as a creator, I started just making songs that were pulling from different places that, you know, a lot of people hadn't really heard.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Elvis, even, like, big part of his inspiration was gospel, and
100%.
he talked about that all the time.
Yeah.
And so the first time, though, you actually started singing, that you realized you love music, obviously your parents met in a gospel choir.
Yeah.
When was that? Were you like an infant and singing out of the womb, or what?
Yeah, I probably, you know, neonatal, you know. You know, you're born into it. And it's crazy because, you know, I have a nephew. My nephew's 15 months now, so maybe 16 months now. And he's already singing and matching pitch and able to do, you know, sing along with different intervals that at his age it shouldn't be possible. But when you grow up in it and around it, you know, and you're surrounded by just this high level musicality, it is a part of you. Yeah. So for me, I would say pretty young, but like I wasn't like the most like outgoing, super talented, this kid is obviously a star child. Like some of these, I know some artists where they've got like videos of them at like 7, 8 years old, and it's like, oh wow, that kid's got it for sure.
He's gonna go places.
Yeah, like I wasn't really that kid. I was a little bit more reserved. I was really an academic, so I really just loved reading and writing books. Even like when I was 12, I wrote like a 300-page novel.
What the heck?
Where is that?
That's at my parents' house somewhere, probably.
Did you ever release it?
Are you gonna release
Not
it?
now. I mean, look, I'm like, it was good for 12. I don't think it was good for 28. Like, I think you can probably look at it and be like, wow, that's pretty impressive for a 7th grader, but definitely not something that I would.
What was it about? What was the context?
It was just something for me and my little brother. I just started writing a story, and he would watch me write it. In real time. It's just
so
off
you made
the top
it up.
of my
You
head.
just
I was making
created
it up. It was a story about me and him getting caught up in this like getting caught up kind of in the middle of this like terrorist plot where we had to like bring down a terrorist organization as teenagers.
Really?
Yeah.
This is sick. You gotta release this.
You gotta come on.
The bones are there, but I mean, I would probably go back and read it now and be very embarrassed. But
that could be a personal thing though too. You gotta let somebody else read it.
Yeah, maybe
it's like somebody might read it and be like, dude, we gotta publish this.
Brilliant. We gotta flip this into a movie, man.
Written by a 12-year-old.
Yeah, be the first.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm like, it's been a good 16 years or so since I wrote it. But you know, as a kid, I was more interested in a lot of those things, and my older sister was more of the like outgoing performer. She was, you know, would audition for commercials, and she auditioned for I think a Broadway musical, and was kind of, you know, doing that thing and sing, dance, act. And I was more interested in like more the academic side, and then also sports for a long time too. But I was just like, you know, I'm not like Mac. I stopped growing at a certain point. Well, I never started growing, I guess. Is the bigger issue. I'm still waiting to go through puberty is what I'm trying to tell you. It's like, but maybe that growth spurt will hit around 31. But yeah, so I was like, okay, cool. By the time I got to high school, I realized, okay, I'm probably not going to be able to be a competitive athlete long term. But what I am pretty naturally good at is singing, and I think going away to high school kind of gave me a chance to explore that.
When did you know that? When did you discover that you would be good at singing? Did people tell you that, or you just felt like?
I knew I was a good singer as a kid. I mean, you know, probably even as like a little kid, just being in the family that I'm in. We all sing. We all sing. my mom's parents sing. You know, like we're all singers. You know, and we're all musical going back generations. So it's not that everyone was pursuing music professionally, but it's just something, you know, it's a part of how we communicate with each other. So I knew at a really young age, like, okay, I can learn parts, I can pick up, 3-4 part harmony. You know, I knew I had pretty good pitch accuracy and recognition. But, you know, it was funny is I would write songs as a kid, like, but they weren't like songs. They were like jingles, more like 10 seconds. They were all like very short.
Like, what's an example? Like, what do you mean by a jingle?
Yeah, sing one.
We had one that goes, and these lyrics don't even make sense. I was like 7, right?
It's okay.
That's actually the name of the song. It's called "It's Okay."
It's okay.
Whoa,
I'm not
that's
kidding.
crazy.
You just said
Listen,
it.
I'm
and
just
that's the name
saying,
of the song. This song went like this. It's okay, and your love. Remember my name. It's weird melodies, nothing, but that's the whole song. It's a 7-second song.
How did you come up with these melodies? That's crazy.
I mean, it was just thinking stuff up.
You have a good voice. I don't know if anybody's ever told you, but you really can sing.
Never. I've been waiting on someone to tell me that.
If you ever wanted to pursue that, that would be a really good option for you.
Yeah, we're writing all these little jingles, but it wasn't anything that was like, oh wow, like he put together a full song with a chorus and a bridge and a verse. It wasn't really until high school that I started taking that seriously.
Yeah. Wow. So when how old were you when My Truck hit?
24.
Okay. What are you, 28 now?
Yeah.
Did you expect that at all? Was there any kind of like preconceived notion? I heard a story that you were trying to figure out like how to release it or something, and you just decided to like hope for the best and upload it or something. Tell me how that went.
I just put it up. Initially when I wrote it, it was just something that we were doing for fun. Let's make something different.
At that time, had you released anything else?
No, not on
Just
any
independent?
streaming platforms. I had put out some music in college, just like on SoundCloud or YouTube or whatever, but not in a capacity that someone could go stream it or buy it.
So that was the first.
That was the first one.
Okay.
Wow, that was a banger.
Yeah, and I felt like I was like, look,
It was
man,
a what? I'm
A
sorry.
banger.
It was what? What's that called?
A banger.
A banger?
Yeah.
Banger.
Go ahead. Go
It's
ahead.
It means like a
It's
really
a
good
small
song.
town in northern Maine.
Wait, is that actually? Wait.
Yes, it is.
Oh,
I'm messing with you.
Wait, it was.
I was like, what? But I think it was like with My Truck, I was like, I knew it was catchy, and I knew it had a chance. I was like, let's put it out and see what happens. But obviously you can't really predict when you put something out that a song is then gonna go super viral or end up going gold and platinum and put you in certain positions. I couldn't have imagined all of that, but I did think, okay, this song is clearly very catchy and I think people will like it.
Yeah.
And that was why I decided to put it out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let me fix this real quick. Sorry.
Oh yeah, bro.
It's a little
please.
bit.
Is
Yeah.
that me
So it
messing
doesn't
up?
fall?
No,
The pillow
it's
doesn't
pull
fall?
that
Nah,
smaller
but-
pillow out a little bit and then put this other one behind it.
Oh, you said this little pillow right
Yeah,
here?
you can use it, but
I
or
don't
if you
need it.
wanna
What if
use
I just
Just
sit it
cuddle
right
it.
That's
Just
fine.
cradle it
That's
like
fine.
this.
Yeah,
Just
like a
hold
child.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing was upward. I didn't want it for the.
Max said he doesn't care about my lower lumbar support.
It wasn't the small pillow, by the way. And I'm not trying to get off track. It was this pillow was a little bit up, okay? God, man.
Dude, so you didn't know what to expect. You put this song up. It took off. Oh, by the way, I'm going to skip way ahead here because we just have listened to Praise the Lord I don't know how many times recently in the car. And we are like dancing. And dude, that just goes over and over and over in your head once you've heard it once.
Thank you, dude. Yeah.
Just the chorus for a second. And you're like, oh, I'm in. This is unbelievable.
Yeah.
The clapping. I mean, everything is so good. So it's
sure.
obvious when you hear that. I don't know how you could write something like that and not know that the writer had a gospel influence on their life.
Definitely.
So
Yeah.
good. Your mom and dad,
Yeah.
they are still are they pastoring a church or just ordained ministers?
Yeah, they mostly just lead worship.
Okay, lead worship,
They have
all right.
other jobs. Like my dad
Okay.
is a judge, actually.
A judge.
Yeah, he's a Superior Court judge in New Jersey, and my mom, she just went back to school and got her doctorate, and she's like one of the leading experts on like equity in public schools.
Okay.
So she does like professional development for teachers and administrators in school districts, and then a lot of other stuff too.
Okay, so coming from a gospel background,
Yeah.
you write the song about your truck, and
Yeah.
some of the lyrics is "You could smoke my blunt."
Yeah.
How did your
Correct.
I'm asking because of the
No, it's a fair
how did
question.
your parents? Yeah, how did they feel? How do they feel now? How did they feel then about your career? And then
Yeah.
have you done things that they have been kind of like, I wish you wouldn't have done that. Like,
Yeah, I mean, they're not gonna say anything about it. I'm sure I know they didn't like that line. Yeah. I'm certain of it. You know, it's always a fine line because I'm like, look, man, like to an extent, we all have secular jobs. I'm like, look, if I'm making music that is reaching people and then puts me in a position to be able to do good with my platform, then technically that song led to something good happening.
Yeah.
Whether or not the lyric in it was something that you thought would bring that about. You know,
Yeah.
I'm like, look,
Yeah.
I think God works in mysterious ways. I think I could put out a song that has absolutely nothing to do with God and still, you know, have a positive impact on the community based on whatever else ends up happening with that song or the position that it puts me in to then be able to be a blessing to somebody else, you
Yeah.
know? And I think they understand the nuance of that, so they're not really tripping. But like when I write songs for other people, especially because I started out as a writer and I still write songs for other people, but like when you write songs in the R&B and hip hop world, like I'm gonna talk the way that those
Yeah,
people
yeah, yeah.
talk on the songs, you know? Like if someone talks a certain way on a song, I'm gonna, as a writer, I'm going to make sure that I'm saying those things that are gonna resonate with that artist. And so there were a lot of cuts that I had early on as a writer where I would just kind of tell my parents off rip, like, don't listen to that song. You know,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
you don't need to. You
yeah.
don't need to hear this. You know, if it has parental advisory on it, that means that I'm advising my parents not to listen to it. You know.
Yeah.
But you know, they understand the nature of the work, and I also have written some gospel songs and been a part of some gospel projects. In fact, I just got my first Grammy nomination for Best Gospel Album.
Wow.
This past weekend.
Amazing.
So, you know, I think there are moments where I'll put something out and I'll be like, hey, I think y'all will really like this song. You know?
Congrats. Nominated for Best Gospel Album?
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Grammy.
Yes, sir.
Dude, what? What did
Yeah. Yeah.
how did that feel? Would you find out about that what? It must have been just days ago.
Yeah, this was, I mean, based on when we were shooting this, I don't know when people will see it.
Yeah, it's
but
okay, yeah.
Yeah, I found
Yeah.
out 2-3 days ago.
Holy cow.
Wow. What did that
Friday
like
morning.
Did you cry?
I did cry. I did cry a little bit. I shed a couple tears. I mean, it was, you know, the last several years now, I've woken up Grammy nomination morning and watched the broadcast and, you know, fingers crossed that something would come across. But this year I was like almost certain that nothing that I was a part of would get nominated because I only as an artist put out one song within the Grammy window. So like, I'm like, I didn't put out a whole lot of music this year for a number of reasons, but like, I was just like, I don't know how many opportunities I will have had this year to even be able to be nominated for something versus years past where I'm like, okay, like there's a chance that some of these songs that I know did really well this year could be recognized and then they weren't. And this year I was just like, all right, well, let me just watch and we'll see what happens. And then, you know, found out that I got one. And it was exciting for a couple reasons. One, it was a song that I wrote with one of my little homies that I've been working with for years. He's 23 now. I've been working with him since he was 15.
Wow.
And, you know, watched both of our careers over that amount of time have taken so many left and right turns, like, you know, success in any industry, but especially in music. It doesn't just look like it just, you know, everything is just always going up all the time. Like there's real ups and downs, and it's,
Yeah.
I think it's a really beautiful metaphor and analogy for life in general. Is like the arc of anyone's career. But like for me and him to have been in the, you know, in the trenches and some of the things that we've gone through individually and together over the last 8 years, you know, to be able to wake up and both be first time Grammy nominated together for a song that we did. Like that made it even more special.
Yeah.
And it was like a crazy 24 hours too, because the day before, that same day, Chris Brown was putting out an album that me and the same dude had a song on. And with Chris, it was like, I knew that he had recorded the song and that he was thinking about putting it out. And I was like, oh man, that would be a great cut for us. And then he posted his album artwork last Wednesday, 2 days before the album came out, and we weren't on there. And I was like, oh man, that's a bummer. I thought for sure we were going to have one. And then he posted the new album track listing like literally 2 hours before the album was coming out, and was like, I had this song with Justin Bieber that was going to be on there, and we weren't able to get the paperwork done in time. So here's the new album track listing. And we had taken the Bieber slot. And I was like, that's crazy. So we literally slid in on this Chris Brown album. And I was like, yo, this is lit. Go to bed that night, wake up the next morning. We got nominated for a Grammy. I was like, yo, this has been like quite a whirlwind of 24 hours.
I'm having joy for you right now. I'm like, damn, this is awesome.
It's great. We gotta celebrate.
It's funny because when I first decided that I wanted to make music, especially in high school, that was as far as my childhood dreams ever went. I had certain goals where I was like, okay, it would be cool to have a gold record or platinum single or #1 song, and I've been able to check off a lot of those boxes, but the last one that I had was to be nominated for a Grammy.
So you get nominated for the best gospel album.
Yeah,
dude,
that makes the parents happy. Right. All things considered, out of all the music that gets made, they're like, that's the one.
It's funny because getting back to Elvis, same story. I don't know if you know that, but Elvis throughout his whole career never got nominated for a Grammy till he did his gospel record, How Great Thou Art. And he got nominated. And that's incredible. So did you call your parents right away?
I did.
Yeah.
I called them immediately.
What did they do?
They were really excited and emotional. I mean, they've always felt like, since I started taking music really seriously, that I have the talent and the work ethic to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And so they weren't at all surprised, but they were definitely excited, and they know what all has gone into me being able to do this. I mean, people can look up and be like, most of the journey never gets documented, right? So it's like, people will see that, if I'm playing certain shows or putting out certain songs or really whatever I allow them to see, but they're not seeing the behind the scenes of the amount of hours that I, had to pour into being able to even get to this point. Dude, there was a period of time where I was literally working 20-hour days making music,
Wow.
or to be able to make music. When I first graduated college, I moved down to Atlanta, and I was working a day job from, corporate America from 8:30 to 6 every day, and then I'll go to the studio from 6:30 to 3.
Wow.
And I'll get home 3:30, 4, and have to be up at 7. And I literally was on that schedule for over a year, and I never took a day off.
Wow.
I never took a single day off. And I was just so highly motivated. And then, I found myself falling asleep at my desk, and I'll fall asleep in the studio. And I'm like, okay, I can't keep doing this. So I'm just going to quit my job and see what happens. And I wasn't making enough money or really any money from music to justify that. But I was like, I'm either going to sink or swim.
Yeah.
Trying to do this full time and seeing what happens. And, I wrote in a probably 5-year period of time, I wrote a good 3,500 songs and maybe made $5,000 total.
Wow.
Wow. It wasn't it wasn't, it's not.
That's crazy.
So it's music isn't like a lot of other careers where there's an entry level job that you get that pays you this much, and then you get promoted to this, and then you get promoted to this. It's feast or famine. You get paid based on how well a song performs. So as a songwriter, I could write however many songs I want, but if I send them to an artist and then that artist ends up not wanting to put it out, I made nothing. Or I could send a song to an artist like the song that Chris Brown just put out. We did that song 3.5 years ago.
Wow.
Whoa.
I had a song that came out a couple months ago that I did in 2018. 5 years that it took for that song to come out.
So did you have to become familiar with like how revenue works on like social media since you had, because in social like when my truck hit, it hit hard. So you had to been making money from that, correct?
For sure.
Okay, so you had to kind of become familiar with like how all that stuff works, Facebook and YouTube and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, but I also think like with songwriting and with artistry, it's a little different because when you put out a song as an artist, you retain a portion. Now it's different when depending on what type of deals you sign, but like as an independent artist, which I was at the time that my truck came out, or for any independent artists that are out there, if you put out a song that you wrote, obviously you will make money off of the publishing of that song, but you're making money off of the master of that song.
Right.
And that's usually when you sign a record deal, what you end up signing away is the master, which is kind of like the lion's share. It's the real true ownership of the song. And then the other revenue is kind of like just residuals on the song. But, learning the business is pretty easy when there's no business. Like when you're writing songs and nobody's picking them up, you don't really have to know the business because I'm like, nobody recorded this song and it never came out. So all of these songs are collectively earning nothing. But over time, obviously, as some of those songs started to get picked up, you learn a little bit more as you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So there was an artist that came here. I probably can't say who it is, but he came here and he shot a music video here.
Okay.
And the video started to do really well, and it's all about the farm, and Johnny Cash is in the background of a lot of the scenes and stuff. And then while he was here, so the owner of the farm, Brian Oxley, is a songwriter.
Right.
But he just literally like writes the songs, somebody sings it, he makes these like lyric videos, and that's it. It's all he ever did. And he's done this like 300 times, I think. Well, this guy heard one of the songs while he was here, and decided he wanted to use one of the songs. It's going to be his next single.
Wow.
So this is Brian's first opportunity at understanding like to where he owns the song. He's the writer of the song, so he gets to like enter. He's got to learn, all of this stuff too. But that's pretty cool. I guess when he's had to learn the music business too.
Yeah.
Brian.
Yeah. Brian. Yeah. You gotta get to know Brian.
You gotta know Brian.
We all know Brian.
I didn't know that about Brian.
You didn't know
that he wrote a bunch of songs.
Dude,
I know he's written books. He's done all this stuff. He's got a crazy.
Brian is the guy
story.
when you first got here, and he's always pretty much in a position of how you saw him today. Like you just randomly stumble on him, and he's like got a photo album. I don't know if you saw, but he had like pictures all over the floor.
Yeah, I did see that.
Like he's got all this stuff.
Or it could be an old Jersey Mike sub sitting on the couch over there.
Well, I'm like walking into the room and there's like hundreds of photos in the doorway, and you're like, come on in. I was like, I can't.
Vintage photo.
I made you like step over the whole thing.
I'm like playing hopscotch to get in the room. That's pretty dope though.
Breland,
That's cool.
I got a question on the 20-hour work days. One of the biggest things I find myself, like, look, when I played football, that's all I wanted to do. I was extremely motivated.
Yeah.
That's what my world was spinning around. When you had those 20-hour work days, what was it that motivated you? Like, what was it? Because everyone struggles with motivation.
Yeah.
And it's especially in today's world, no one wants to work.
Yeah.
So you're doing these things. Like, what was it that was like driving you so much? What was your driver? Or multiple.
My driver was that I really felt like I could do it, and until I was able to actually fully prove it to myself, I was going to keep working toward it. I had a lot of people that told me that I couldn't do it. I would say proving them wrong was a small part of that, but proving myself right was even more important. And, music is one of those things. It's similar to sports in some ways in terms of the amount of like time and discipline that goes into being able to be the best at it. But with sport, it's like there is a path to make it to, say, the NFL. You've got to be on a pretty decent high school team. You probably got to start to be able to get recruited by certain colleges. You end up going to one of those, theoretically it would need to be probably a D1 school more often than not. You go to that D1 school, at some point you have to start, you have to perform at a high level. You got to have certain metrics in the combine. You got to get an agent at some point, and then you meet with teams, you try out, somebody signs you and or drafts you, and then, you got to try to make the final roster of that team, et cetera, et cetera. And there is a very clear path to get to that point. Music, there's 50 different entry points. It's like, oh, I got into music because my dad worked at a record label and then he signed me, or, I got into music because, there's so many different ways to do it. There's people who, bust their backs on Broadway singing every night, and then a small percentage of them end up getting a shot. Nowadays kids might post a video on TikTok or, over the last 15 years on YouTube, and, things start to pop like that. And you see people, make it like that. There's people who start out writing songs for other people like myself, and then eventually they start putting out music themselves, and, you see how that goes. But there's so many different ways to get into music, and none of them are, it's not a monolith, like you have to figure out what your own path is going to be. And I remember I took a meeting back in college, and one of my classmates, I went to Georgetown, one of my classmates who graduated the year after my freshman year, he graduated my freshman year as a senior. And so my sophomore year, he had gotten a job at 300 Entertainment, which is, the label that does, they've had a bunch of different artists, but Lev Cohen, who had previously been the head of Atlantic Records, and before that he was at Def Jam, and he's one of those guys that like Jay-Z and a lot of other rappers will shout out in a song, because he's just kind of been in hip hop for a really long time. Somehow my friend had ended up getting me a meeting with Leor, and I came up as a sophomore in college. I'm 19. I'd been writing some songs, but I felt like I was pretty good based on friends of mine being like, you're pretty good, but I had never had a real industry insight on this. And so I take the mega bus up from DC to New York one morning for this meeting. I'm pumped. I'm like, I'm about to sign a deal, and I'm never gonna go back to school. I just thought like this is my time. And I sat down, I played him like a song, a verse chorus of the first song, and then like a little bit of a second song. And he just like put his hand up and he was like, this is a waste of my time.
Oh my God.
Why am I here?
Holy
And then he
shit.
like got up and left the room. And I like got back on another megabus and went back home, and I was like very emotional, and I was like, man, like I thought I was gonna make it in music, and it didn't happen. And then, a couple days passed, and I was like, I mean, what if I'm just not good enough yet? What if I need to just improve and get better? I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna get to a point where I'm making music that's undeniable, and no one will be able to tell me that again. And so that was when I decided, hey, I'm going to write and record a song every single day until something happens. And after a year of doing that and nothing had happened, I said, cool, I'm doing 2 songs a day. I did 2 songs a day for about 2 years, ran up about 700 songs each year, and still nothing had really happened. And I was like, okay, cool. I graduated from college. I was like, I'm doing 3 songs a day. So when I moved to Atlanta, I'm working my job. I'm going to the studio, and I'm like, cool, I'm going to write and record 3 songs every day until something happens.
Wow.
And, at the time I was really just writing for other people, seeing what could happen there. And, so my goal was like, man, I just need to get like a major label cut, someone that has a budget behind them that can put a song out and see what happens with it. But 2014, 15, 16, 17, and 18, I had a total of 0 major label cuts. 2019, I had 14 major label cuts. It just finally started to work. And things finally started to move a little bit, where I was not only getting a lot better as a writer, and obviously the quality of what I was making was there, but I was also networking a lot more, taking trips out to New York and Los Angeles and meeting different people in the industry that I could then send songs to and try to pitch things out. And so that was the year that all of that started to happen. But what's crazy, kind of back to the money conversation of music, is that even once those songs come out, you don't see anything up front. Those songs come out and it takes, say 9 months or so for those songs to accrue the revenue that you'll ultimately see as a writer. So like I didn't see any money off of those 2019 songs until 2020. But it was in that swing of writing all of those songs that artists were putting out that I was like, okay, I want to put my truck out myself. And so then the artistry kind of for me took off a little bit faster than, and also helped support what I was doing on the writing side, and so then I was like, okay, cool. Now I have a record deal. I can write songs for my own project. And instead of waiting to see what another artist is going to do with it, I could be like, hey, I'm going to put this out. I believe in this song. And it gives me a lot more control over that process. I mean, writing 3,500 songs is like scoring 35,000 points in basketball. Like it's, you know what I mean? Like it's a lot. I know people who have won a bunch of Grammys that, but people who have a ton of number ones that have not written anything close to that amount. Now, I would say there's something to be said for quality versus quantity. But at the time, I was just so hungry for it that it wasn't really, I think a lot of the songs that I was making in probably about 2018 and 2019 were actually pretty good. Before that, I was still just figuring out like, well, I needed time to continue to develop. But to your question of like what was going to motivate you, when I took that meeting with Leor and he told me that it was a waste of his time, and I was like, okay, well, I want to get really good at this. In fact, I want to be the best.
But at first, it must have been devastating, like
of course,
heartbreaking.
Oh, it was heartbreaking. No one knows how to handle. Like, I mean, maybe
rejection.
Some people do, but a lot of people don't know how to handle rejection, and they don't know how to handle like critique or negative feedback about something, especially when it's something so personal. Like I think for me it was like, well, I still really want to do this, and I'm not gonna let one person's opinion deter me from doing the thing that I've already now spent several years working toward. So if it means that I need to just continue to turn things up a notch and improve and get better, then let me try to get better. And I still have that mentality now. I still want to get better. I still don't think I've written anything close to the best songs that I will have written. And I know that because the songs I've written in just the last 2 weeks are thus far the best songs that I've written. And I hopefully will be able to continue to beat them over time. I still, as an artist now too, I'm like, coming into things, I didn't have a whole lot of experience performing. I'd sung in church a few times. I was in an a cappella group in college, but like, as an adult, especially, I wasn't performing at all. I was just in the studio writing songs for other people to sing. So like figuring out what it looks like for me to step on a stage and perform these songs as the artist, that was a mental hurdle for me to get over, is like, well, and also like as a kid, like I had a couple performance experiences that went really badly that like probably a lot of people would have seen that and been like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. Like I had 2 instances where I peed myself on stage, just like fully, like the whole thing.
Really?
Yeah, full bladder.
How old were you?
The first one happened when I was 7, and the second one happened when I was 9.
Okay, so this isn't in your 20s. This is
just as a kid, but only the formative years, right? Like nothing significant, right?
That's so sad, though.
Had situations where I literally was so nervous to be on stage that I literally would pee my pants, and then I had other situations where I would have been so prepared, but then like the minute I got on stage, like stage fright would take over, and I would forget all of the words to whatever it was that I was doing. I had one situation where I messed up. I was doing a performance at my high school while I was in high school, and this is and it's a boarding school, so I'm like, I live with these kids. I'm sitting here trying to impress everybody. And I messed up one word, and then all of a sudden I messed up the next line, and I messed up the next line. Then I couldn't even remember how the song went. And I like stopped mid-performance and just ran off stage. And like those moments, as embarrassing as they were, like for me, that was part of why I was like, man, I don't know if I really want to be an artist, because I feel like the situations that I've gotten on stages have been more bad than good. And so I was like, look, I just love making music. I'm down to write.
Yeah.
But then eventually I got to a point where enough people were like, hey, you've got a great voice and you sound like the artist on these demos that you're recording. Like, you should put something out yourself. And that was really kind of what gave me the motivation to then be like, okay, I'm going to put some music out myself and see if I can stand on that.
Wow. You're an independent artist still?
No,
Today?
I'm with
Your
Atlantic
son?
Records.
How
now.
you were independent for a while, right?
Not for very long.
Not for
I
very
mean, I was
long.
independent for years while I was writing, but once my truck popped off, I was like,
You're gonna need help.
yeah, I was gonna need some
Yeah,
help, and
you
also
need a
like all of
machine.
these different labels are, offering me life-changing money to, partner and sign deals. So.
Yeah. What was that experience like in going from my truck to like getting this notoriety and like sitting down and actually working with guys that you're working with now, like
Yeah.
Keith Urban and like people that
Yeah.
you're like getting to know? Like, what is that like?
Shania Twain.
Yeah, man.
Dude, freaking Shania, like legendary,
Legend.
unbelievable.
It's it's been incredibly gratifying and humbling to be able to do it. Like, I'm a sponge, so I'm like, whenever I'm in with someone that I look up to in that way, someone that I know has been able to do this for a long time, I know they've got crazy stories to tell and a lot of insight. So like, I'm always trying to learn from those artists. And with someone like Keith, for example, like, we went out together, literally just us and my two producers went out to Australia for a month and wrote a bunch of songs, during the pandemic. And like, that experience was great because there were no distractions. We were quarantined together, and literally just sharing stories and experiences and seeing his creative process, but also just seeing how he is as a person, how he, carves out time and prioritizes, his wife and his kids, and, how he takes care of his body, and how he takes care of his mental health to be able to keep doing what he's been doing now for almost 30 years, probably longer. But, for me to be able to spend that time with him, you can't put a price tag on that,
No.
man. That's invaluable experiences.
Yeah.
Somebody like Shania, I mean, she's got the best-selling country album of all time. She's got the best-selling album of any woman of all time.
Yeah.
Like, these aren't
That's
regular stats.
Yeah,
like,
nah.
these are, you are the
Nah.
greatest ever, and I got a
Yeah.
chance to tour with her in the US and in the UK and Ireland, and play Madison Square Garden, be the first people to ever play Geodis Park in Nashville, be the, do back-to-back sold-out shows at the O2 in London. Like, these are lifelong dreams of mine and things that every performer wants to be able to do. And, I've got literally a front row / side stage and on stage, lessons to be learned, and view of the whole thing. So I'm someone that likes to ask a lot of questions. And so whether it's someone like Keith or Shania or, Garth Brooks or whomever else, like, I ask questions. I want to pick their brains. I want to know what I can do better. I like getting their feedback on songs too, because I know that what I'm doing is really different than what any of them do. And so, being able to have their stamp of approval. I wanted to do an EP of songs that Garth likes of mine and call the EP Garth Approved This EP. So that when people tell me this isn't country, I could be like, no. Wait, Garth said.
Let me show
Garth
you
said
right
he liked
here.
it. They make this, the artwork is like a screenshot of the conversation. Who knows? I probably won't be able to do that. But, I love being able to learn from these guys. And so anytime I get an opportunity to write with, and not even just the legends, but people who are doing it now, and doing it at a high level, whether it's, someone like a Thomas Rhett or, a Sam Hunt or whomever else, like Hardy, I get to see these people, at different points in their careers, figuring out what their next moves are going to be. And then when I'm in those situations myself, I have a basis from which to make decisions.
Yeah. I wish you as a parent, that's what you want for your kids. You want your kids to like follow. You want to be able to set an example for them.
Definitely.
So that they can like avoid some of the same mistakes and stuff. So you're in a good position because you're talking to all these like legendary people
Yeah.
who you have this opportunity to learn a lot from, and you're young. So
Yeah.
10 years from now, you're going to be able to learn from this stuff. And
Yeah. And for me, it's like, it as far as like giving back to the younger generation, it already starts now. You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I'm about to go get coffee with a young artist that hit me up and was like, hey, you know, love what you're doing. Like, big fan of yours. Like, I just moved to Nashville and I'm figuring out what I want to do. Like, I would love to be able to pick your brain. And I'm like, let's do it. And she was shocked. She was like, what? Like, I can't.
Yeah.
She's like, I can't believe that you actually want to do this. I was like, 100%. I'm like, you got a great voice. Like, let's get coffee and see if there's anything that I can do to help
But
you out.
okay, but what does that look like though for you? Because I would assume that it's you have a lot of probably comments, messages to filter through.
Yeah.
How can you possibly see them all? I would assume you can't. But how do when you're
Right.
going through them, how do you decide this comment, this message from this person stands out more than somebody else? How could somebody?
Well, once upon a time, I was that person. You know, I was reaching out. There were years that I was just reaching out. There's hundreds of people that, you know, it's sometimes I've had some full circle moments where I've ended up working with someone that I had DM'd 5 or 6 years prior. And I'm like, yo, like, check your DM. And then they'll go into it and be like, oh my gosh, you messaged me in 2016. Like, I didn't know, you know, and then it turns into a really lovely moment. You know, I've had several of those encounters, and I know what it's like to be, you know, the unknown, you know, super green writer, artist that's reaching out and trying to get people's attention. So I try to read as many of them as possible, but there is a certain energy that people come with that reminds me of myself, and I tend to respond to those people. Whether there's anything that I can actually do, like in this situation, it was like, oh, I actually am in Nashville and I am free, you know, Tuesday afternoon. Like, let's do it. It worked out that way. Sometimes people might hit me up and they might be in like South Africa somewhere. And I'm like, okay, I don't know if I could actually link up with you, but
Sure.
I'm like, you know, send me a snippet of something and I'll give you my feedback. And like, that might be all it takes for somebody to be like, wow, I got feedback on this and now I know what to do. And maybe that lights a fire under them to go on and accomplish something amazing. But if all the ways that I can try to give back to the next generation of kids that are about to pop off and are popping off in real time, like, I want to be able to do that because I had a few people that really took that time to invest in me, and I think it's important.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah,
It was
Matt,
wild. Who were some of those people when you're talking about these? Because like I can imagine I've done the same thing in my life. Like, reached out to different people. Some people have responded, really taken me under their wing, helped me elevate. Who was someone who's really done that for you? That like you were maybe in a position where you needed, you know, someone to reach back out and say something. Who was like someone that stood out and really helped you along your career?
Yeah.
There's probably tons.
Yeah.
I'm saying like
not as many as you would think. I mean, shoot, I probably sent off several hundred messages like that in a 2-year span, and I maybe heard back from 5 of them. You know, it was a really short list. I mean, I was
what are you
batting.
doing? Going on Instagram, messaging people? How are you messaging people?
Instagram, you know, this is way before TikTok. I mean, Instagram, Twitter, if I could Google somebody's email address, or really what you got to do is find the format for email addresses. Be like, okay, it's first name dot last name at thiscompany.com. Like, if you figure that out, you could email everyone within the organization. You know, you just got to space it out so they don't start talking. Hey, you got an email from this guy?
Yep.
You got to be smart about it. But yeah, I was just reaching out to anyone in the industry that I felt like could help me. And very, very, very few people ever really took that chance. But you know, there was one producer that I was working with in Atlanta for a few years that he had accomplished quite a bit. You know, multi-Grammy winner, #1's been in the industry for 30 years. He just turned out to not be a great person and didn't really do great business. Definitely more of like a predatory figure in the industry, and unfortunately, there are a bunch of them. I think money and power can.
What do you mean by that? So is it someone that's trying to, here's someone who I know has got a lot of talent. Let me jump on this. Let me sign a contract of some sort to like lock them in, or
Not even that. I mean, to be honest, like signing someone to a deal is like kind of just business. Like, I can look at a deal and be like, oh, okay, I don't agree with this, or I do agree with this, and then sign it, and then then the onus is kind of on me. His situation was more of a working relationship that had no title, and it doesn't work in romantic relationships either. By the way, trying to. I'm like, you have to be able to define what this is. I'm like, are you my manager? Are you my producer? Are you my A&R? Are you my publisher? He kind of becomes this like, omnibus, like I have, hands in every aspect of your career without really having a real legal basis for what exactly the nature of the relationship is. So initially it just felt like mentorship, but then when certain things came across, like for example, when I wrote My Truck, I was like, he was one of the first people I showed, and I was like, I think I want to put this song out. And he was adamant. He was like, no, you're not an artist. You're a writer. You're going to ruin your career by trying to be an artist. Like, this song sucks, and you should not put it out. You should go back to doing what you were doing before. I put it out anyway. And when it started to move, I'm like, hey, man, look at all of these comments and videos on this, the song is moving. And he's like, none of that means anything. Like, go, just
because he had to be right.
Because he had to be right. And also because it wasn't what he had envisioned for my career. And I think, his experience in R&B music, it was to his benefit to be able to control what it was that I was doing. Because as I said, in 2019, things were starting to pop off on the songwriting side. And the way that it works in music, I told you, like, songwriters usually don't get paid up front. We get paid based on how well the song does.
Right.
But producers usually get paid in advance. So he's getting paid, $5,000, $7,500, $10,000 a track for these songs that I was writing for other people, that if you have 14 of those over the course of a year, he's made 6 figures in income that he doesn't have to worry about, simply by virtue of the nature of our relationship at the time.
Yeah.
And so if I'm then going to move into a genre that he can't benefit from or contribute to, he's going to lose control over what has become a very active, passive part of, active and passive part of his income and his ability to stay relevant as a producer. So he was going to discourage me from doing anything that would make him lose control over, my situation. And ultimately, when I ended up signing my deal and he revealed his true colors once and for all, it's like when you finally unmask the villain at the end, you're like, what?
Yeah.
It was Mr. Jenkins the whole time. It was like Scooby-Doo, where I was like, oh, wow, like, you didn't care about me at all. You didn't want me to win. You wanted to win, and you saw me as a conduit for you to be able to maintain relevance in the music industry. That's not going to happen. So, and there were other factors into this without getting into the messy details, but I just can't have people around me that don't actually care about me as a person. If you want to benefit from Breland the business and you don't care about Daniel Breland the person, there is no business to be done. And that was an important lesson for me to learn at that point in my career too, because there are a lot of people who, want to take advantage of young talent, and there's a lot of wolves dressed in sheep's clothing in this industry, and it's hard to know who those people are because they come across a certain way and they've accomplished a certain amount of things where you're like, well, they can't be a bad person. They've got this many number ones. Sometimes those are the worst people, because their talent or their ability to manipulate, other people can keep them in the game for a certain amount of time. But I think for me in that situation, it was like, okay, now I know what to look for in people that I want to do business with and the people that I want to collaborate with, where there has to be a personal element where I can actually trust you as a person. And if I can't trust you as a person, I can't trust you with my business. And so I'm really grateful in hindsight that I was able to have that experience and come out of it relatively unscathed. Because a lot of people's stories go a lot worse than that.
Yeah.
That's shitty though. Sorry for my language. I'm just sitting over here and I'm like, there's some, like, I just had to say it. It's some sad shit that people do that. It actually, like, it irritates me that there's people out there that genuinely don't care about people and they want to control, and there's no like there's no sorry. I was just I was getting kind of like frustrated because I'm like, I know that happens, and I don't I think there's like a lack of there's just so many people who are doing those kind of things, and I don't understand where there's not a switch, like even if they go into it with that, how they don't end up caring for somebody.
Yeah.
Like it's just straight. How does your mind do that? How does someone do that to somebody? It just
that's a really good question. I think this is something I think about all the time because I'm also I'm in comedy and film movie producing,
right.
And there's a movie that I'm working on right now about a legendary Christian artist. His name's Carmen, and back in the 80s and 90s, Carmen was like, the Elvis of Christian music.
Sure.
Well, he had so many stories about so many people that took advantage of him, and I couldn't understand it because I spent 8 months of the last of his life. He died now a couple years ago, but I spent a lot of time talking to him one-on-one, and I found him so endearing and so just a regular person who had been screwed over by a lot of people in the industry, and I couldn't understand that. And as the story, and then when he died, all kinds of stories came out about people that really did him dirty. Yeah. And in the music business, I don't care if it's whatever genre it is, and you would think like Christian music.
Christians. No.
Sorry, dude, they might be some of the worst
ones, man. They be the worst ones because they come to you and act like they'll add this whole God element of like I'm praying for you, and they use all this language that I would almost rather somebody just tell me that they don't care about me at all. And be like, okay, cool. Well, I could almost do business with someone like that a lot sooner because then I know what it is versus someone that's going to try to disguise something that's really predatory as being really beneficial or positive or healthy.
Yeah, I was so bummed to hear about how many people walked into this man's life over the course of like 30 years and consistently stole from him.
Yeah.
Or like put in some special language that nobody knew about in a contract. Like it's bad. And
dude, I've had songs that I've literally written by myself that I've ended up getting like 7% of the final splits. Like, in R&B and hip hop, it's wild, bro. Because like I had a song where I'm not gonna say who the artist is, but it's an artist that people know. And
no, go ahead, right into the
no. But I had a song that I did. And I did the lion's share of this song. I mean, I came up with the concept. I came up with every single melody that was in the song and probably a good 70 to 80% of the lyrics. And I literally ended up with 5% of the publishing. And I'm looking through the splits and I'm like, yo, there was a dude on there who wasn't even present. He wasn't even there. I was like, how does this dude have 12% of this song that I wrote? And he wasn't there. And someone's like, well, he's cool with the artist and and then the artist wants to take,
What does that mean? He's cool with the artist.
So now like the artist is going to set aside a certain amount of publishing for this person because he wants to make sure that his boys can eat. And I'm like, that's fine. But if you want your boys to eat, then you need to make sure your boys can work. Like I want my boys to eat too, but I'm not giving anyone publishing on a song they weren't a part of just because I want to be able to make sure everybody eats. You got to work for what you're going to get, and I can provide opportunities for that, but nobody eats for free. Yeah. So I'm like, that was such a crazy concept to me. But there's so much of that. It's rampant in the music industry where, you got to do good business.
Is that not so when you're prior to that though, that's the thing, is that not already discussed before writing the song what the deal is going to be?
Well, you don't know what the deal is going to be on a song until it's written, right? Like if we sit down to write a song, let's say that the three of us get in a room to write a song.
We'll do that at some point.
Let's go ahead and do that.
If the three of us sit down to write a song, I personally feel like we should just split it 33 and a third.
Me too. That's what I feel like. With that as well. We do that tomorrow.
Because ultimately we don't, I'm like, even if I do a little bit more on this song than y'all do, like theoretically we could all get in again and, next time you might have the main idea that helps bring the whole thing together and the next time you might do it. I personally do just feel like we should just split it down the middle.
Yeah.
But, let's say the three of us come in to write a song and we start working on it, and then 20 minutes into us writing, you get a call, and sorry, I got to go pick up my mom-in-law from the airport, and then you're gone, and now we finished the song and you weren't really a part of any of it, then we have to have a conversation of like, well, what's really fair in this situation? Because we pretty much wrote almost all of this song without you present, you know? So then that's where things start to get a little tricky. Where things get trickier is, you know, when you have an artist that might say, okay, well, I like this song, but you know, I need to make sure I get my publishing. So now I'm going to change things about the song that didn't really need to be changed so that I can be, you know, more justifiably entitled to a certain amount of publishing on it. That's a little bit murkier, because then it's like, okay, well, you did add something to it or you did change something from it, but how do we actually qualify what that should be worth? And ultimately we all have to agree on that for a song to come out. But when you're a younger, newer songwriter in the industry, a lot of times you feel like you can't be like, hey, I'm not cool with that, because you don't want to be the one that holds up a song coming out because the splits aren't right. You know, and so you're like, okay, sure, like, let's just put it out. And then you end up agreeing to something that isn't actually fair for you and what it is that you contributed to a song.
Wow.
That's so crazy to me. Like the fact that it's relying, because I like when I sign a deal with any kind of company I may work with, I like that there's a contract beforehand and prior, and I like it as clear as possible. But in the music world, that's nuts to me, because you're relying on humans at the end of the day instead of paper.
And they're all handshake deals, you know, and until there's contracts involved. But when you're just writing a song, like, you don't ever want to be the guy that comes into a room and you're like, hey, before we get started, we're all gonna get the same split. Like, that sounds crazy.
But I feel like a bunch of problems are caused by, again, say we all three write a song, and it's like, maybe I did the heavy lifting in this situation. No, I'm just kidding. You'd be definitely doing that. But if I did the heavy lifting and I'm like, okay, I did this much, and then you're like, no, I did this. All three of us, I think, could get along well. But depending on a different group, I just don't see, like, is there a lot of times, are there disagreements where stuff doesn't come in? Do the labels come in and say something? Like, what?
At the end of the day, like, I do a lot of the heavy lifting on a lot of songs that I'm a part of, just based on the way that my brain thinks about songwriting. Like, I have a really, really keen melodic mind. So I'm going to come up with verse melodies and hook melodies before anyone else even has a chance to come up with anything, because that's just what my brain moves to first. If I come into a write and I have a concept, now I've got the title of the song and the, you know, the melodies of the song already established within the first 3 minutes. You know, and then we're going to all sit down and try to go through lyrics. But theoretically, I've already done half the song by myself just because I work that way. So I still personally feel like if we're all in a room for the whole duration of the write, that we should all just split it. Because if I wanted to write a song by myself and, you know, if I was really worried about what my splits or publishing was going to be, I would just write it by myself. You know, and there's certain songs that I have written entirely by myself, and, you know, they've come out and they've done fine. But part of why I love writing songs is because I love being able to create with people. And I think the collaborative aspect of making music is really beautiful. You know, the stories that I have literally just from being in a room and creating something with someone, even if you only contributed 5% of like what ended up on the song, that 5% could have been a pivotal moment that then took us in a direction to be able to do something else. Like, it is kind of hard to qualify what something is. My rule is just that if you weren't in the room and you didn't, you know, then like, that's where I really draw my line. But I'm the fairest person in the world when it comes to making sure that everybody has equal splits and that everyone feels represented, because I know what that's like to be on the losing end of that. And I would rather us all be like, hey, we did this together, and be able to shake hands on that than to be like, well, technically I did a little bit more, so I should have a little bit more of that. You know, I'm not worried about that. I know if I wanted to do that.
Has that been a difficult process for you though? Because you hear these horror stories about, you know, don't sign with a label. Stay independent because they'll screw you over. And so you, with, you know, like being with a label, have you lost control of being able to make some of those decisions, or
100%? You
have?
Yeah, 100%. And you go into that, I would imagine, and a lot of people, the difference is I think a lot of people don't know what they are signing up for. in a lot of situations, what you're signing up for when you sign a major label deal, that you're giving away, your masters, that you're giving away, that you're giving away a certain amount of control over the process and over what songs are going to get to come out and, et cetera. But what you're getting is a fat advance and, the infrastructure of a team that theoretically knows how to make songs move and how to distribute them at a high level that you don't have, on your own. So it's like you have to understand coming into any agreement, what is this actually going to look like and what am I giving up? And if you're not cool giving that up, then you should stay independent. But if you're cool giving that up because you understand what the upside of that could be for your career, then you should sign the deal. It really comes down to signing deals with people that believe in you and not just believe in something that you're doing. Because if you just believe in, I couldn't sign any deals with anyone who just believed in my truck. If I wanted to sign a whole artist deal off of any of the labels that were just interested in my truck because they were hoping that it could be like another Old Town Road and they're all of their analytics are telling them that this song will move a certain way, that's not a good basis from which to try to make a real partnership. The reason that I ended up signing where I did is because I sat down with this dude named Kevin Weaver, who is the head of Atlantic Records West Coast, is the West Coast president. And, I sat down with Weaver and he gave it to me straight. He was like, I want to be in the Breland business. I don't care how many albums it takes for us to get you to where you need to go, but I'm willing to stake my whole career on this. Amazing. And, it's not to say that, any relationship, you're going to have ups and downs and you're going to have to work through some things, and it's a creative industry too. So people, sometimes people take things personally, but there's never been any question in my mind that he has been invested in, helping me get to where I need to go. Now, obviously, there is a benefit to him for me to get where I need to go, right? Like, it's not all selfless. Like, he's going to benefit from that because we're in business together. But I know that all the business aside, like, we can talk to each other, not as artist and label head, but as person to person and, come to an understanding. So when decisions need to get made, I don't feel like I'm like, wow, I have to keep fighting against the label. It's like, no, I'm going to have a conversation with Kevin and we're going to try to figure it out. And I'm going to try to see where he's coming from and he's going to try to see where I'm coming from.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. So somebody with a gospel background, Christian background and household and stuff, that's called discernment.
Yes, sir.
You got to have discernment. You got to know who you're talking to so that you can trust them, whether or not you can. That's awesome.
For sure. That's awesome. And that, that discernment, I think, goes, it extends far beyond even that, like, I have to be able to have discernment when I step into a certain venue to perform. Like, I have to, my prayer on the road, like, there's so many things that can go wrong in any number of situations. Somebody could rob you, somebody could, there's crazy things that could happen just based on people that you meet or situations that you're in, so if something doesn't feel right or something doesn't feel safe or something doesn't feel like it's going to be healthy or productive, like, I've got discernment for people, I've got discernment for corporations, I've got discernment for places and situations. And, I'm really, really grateful to have it.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So why? I mean, I'm stepping back a little bit, but why country music? How did that happen? Since you've been influenced by so many different things.
Yeah. Why country? I mean, initially it was just because my truck went. It was like, I'm like, okay, well, this song is doing well.
Because you're a kid in New Jersey or something like that.
From New Jersey, bro. Yeah. Like, now that said, I'm from South Jersey, so like, South Jersey is a lot different from like Newark,
Trenton.
Or like,
where's Trenton?
A little bit further. Trenton is about 25 to 30 minutes north of me. Okay. But yeah, Trenton is kind of sits like at the little curve of New Jersey, and I'm like a little bit further south from there. So like, theoretically, Philly is the closest city to me. New York is a lot further than Philly.
I didn't realize that. I guess I'm geographically not real bright.
People think about New Jersey and New York because they obviously are neighboring states, and right across from New York City is the New Jersey border. You would fly into New York. A lot of people will fly into Newark, New Jersey. But like, New Jersey is kind of split as a state where like the northern part of the state is like very much like a, suburbs of New York. And then the southern part of the state is all suburbs of Philly, because Philly is also a city that's on the water. And on the other side of that river is New Jersey.
Okay.
So yeah, we're kind of outside of Philly, but yeah, there's not, Clint Black is the only country artist that has ever come out of New Jersey and done any type of numbers.
I didn't know
he
he
doesn't
came
even
out.
really claim it. I mean, hey, Dierks Bentley went to a boarding school in New Jersey.
Really?
People
What
don't know
boarding
that.
school did he go
He
to?
went to Lawrenceville,
Okay.
which was actually my rival high school.
What is it about New Jersey? You went to a boarding school for a little while, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
And, I read
The
about that.
Northeast
And
does
then
a lot of boarding schools.
Carmen too.
I went to a boarding
Went to a
school.
boarding school. You went to a boarding school.
Yeah.
What is it with all these people went to boarding schools?
There's a
I
lot of
can't
boarding
believe it.
schools out there,
Boarding
man.
school.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean,
Wow.
who knows?
So how does that work at a boarding school? You go for like the week and then you're home at the weekends, or
I
sometimes
was
you're there all
home.
day?
I was on campus the whole time.
So for like what period of time? Like how long would you
I
be
guess
at the boarding school?
Beginning of September till end of May.
Okay, so in that period of time,
Like
how
the
often
school year?
Okay, when would you see your folks? When would you see your family?
Well, because I lived close enough, like usually Sundays I would go home. I would go to church with my parents Sunday morning and then go watch the Eagles game and then come back that afternoon or evening.
Now, why did you end up going to a boarding school in the first place?
It was just a really good school, like
Okay.
very academically competitive.
Carmen was like kind of a screw up, I think.
Okay,
Like
I
they
think
were-
like there are
his-
certain boarding
his-
schools
not
that
a
are,
screw up, but they were worried that he was gonna like keep getting into fights and stuff like that. So it was
yeah, like this is like a boarding school that's more like so like back in the day, boarding school was like a place that you would like send your delinquent kids. This
Yeah.
is like more of a school
Yeah,
where like
this would have been like in the
my kid is
70s,
an
yeah.
overachiever and they're not challenged enough at their local public school, so we're gonna try to send them somewhere that they can be around.
They
a
can
lot
excel.
More. Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha, gotcha.
And so that was really why
That's
I
cool.
was there, But coming from New Jersey and then ending up in country music, it definitely, people squint. But what I'm also learning is that like country music is everywhere, and I came back from a 5-week European run. I did some headline shows and then was out there with Shania as well. And I mean, dude, we packed out places in Copenhagen and Germany and, freaking Amsterdam and
Wow.
places that you wouldn't expect people to show up for a country concert. My
Yeah.
biggest ever headline show that I've had in terms of like tickets sold was in London on that trip.
Wow, really?
And like, if we can pack out a 1,300 person club in a whole other part of the world, like to me, that's where I'm like, okay, country music is everywhere.
Yeah,
You got people all over the world that are singing along with Morgan Wallen and Zach Bryan and Luke Combs, and watching them sell out arenas and stadiums in these different places. Like there is a market for it for sure. And so I think where I'm from, for me, is not a barrier to entry. It's really just about being able to write songs at a high level, and that's something that I've always prided myself on.
Yeah.
Prided?
Proud myself.
I've always
on.
proud myself on.
I'm just-
That's crazy.
No, it's definitely.
As it came out of my
Always
mouth, I was like,
proud.
that I've always proud myself on.
yeah.
I hate that.
Good, Mac. Do you have any term ideas?
I don't want to botch any terms. Really, I have a thing with botching
Usually
terms.
Mac's really good at coming up with
Yeah,
this stuff.
I fix repercussions. There was one word when we talked one time, and I called
Repercussions?
it repercussions.
Oh,
That's how you were
repercussions.
saying it?
Yeah, repercussions.
Repercussions.
Oh, like it was like had caution in it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
okay.
Yeah, I think
we
so.
figured
yeah.
it out. We
Yes.
figured it out.
Did you know I met Mac because do you
I
remember?
reached out.
you
So
remember-
my brother, it's crazy small world. My oldest brother, massive fan of Jack's.
Yeah.
All growing up, was fascinated with the way he would be able to make people laugh. Was like very just interested in that type of humor. And so my brother Billy saw on an Instagram story, he followed Jack. I didn't follow Jack at the time. He saw on an Instagram story that Jack was doing a meet and greet in Franklin.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And so I was like, my brother's like, you got to go to this.
Right.
And I'm like, I knew Billy showed me his videos and we grew up. I've seen Jack's videos, but it was like, I was never like a mega fan like my brother or
He
anything.
said he didn't like you very much.
yeah.
Not that. But so then I was like, all right, like my brother's like, you got to meet this guy. My brother's very creative,
Yeah.
awesome. And he's like, this is just someone who's outside of the usual kind of content you do in the content world. you need to learn from him and get to know him. So he sends me that, and I remember I DM'd Jack off of that little story and was like, I would love to meet you sometime. Let's whatever. Similar story to when that girl or that artist, whoever the lower tier artist, reached out to you. Jack responded, and then we ended up meeting for lunch.
But I couldn't. Here's the thing, though. I couldn't respond. I can't respond to everything. So I every once in a while, and I mean it's like once in a blue moon. I'll go on.
Got that blue check though.
Yeah, that's right.
I had it way before anyone could pay for it.
I'm not gonna lie. That stood out a little bit. Yeah, it's true.
Like Zuckerberg verifies this guy, I verify.
But it took a year. It took a year. It was like a year later, and I happened to be going through a bunch of old messages, and I was like, "What is it?" And that one stood out, and I went, "What is this?" He said something, and I'm like, and then I got back to him, and it took a year. But I rarely checked my messages, and when I was going through, every once in a while, I'll do it, and I'll go through and like see who's whatever. But yeah, that's how. And then the rest is here. Here he sits. Here he is.
Hereford.
Yeah.
Hereford, the good time.
Hereford.
I'll say this about I've really enjoyed getting to learn because I've just hearing your story. Obviously, we're friends, and we've talked about a lot of different things. But just hearing your story from that area, like from when you were first born to now, is incredible. During this episode, I've wanted to be like, dude, like, I wanted to give you like a pat on the back, be like, hell yeah, because it's a ton of like overcoming adversity multiple times. Even as a child, like I couldn't imagine going and peeing myself on stage, and then it's like the next thing you're getting to college, you're writing all these songs. This guy tells you, he literally says the most disrespectful thing to you, like you're wasting my time. And you're going through that, like, I'm very empathetic, I guess is the word, but it's like, I can almost feel that. Like, it's like sad. Like, I'm like, dang, like, I hate that for you. Like, I would hate to be in that moment. Yeah. And then you use it and you keep going and keep going. You're chipping away. Yeah. And eventually, you're just popping. And you're still not even, in my eyes, I think you, from what you've said, and like we've heard, I think you're only just beginning.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
100%, dude. This is like literally the start.
Got
like,
one album out,
I know, man. It's yeah, so many.
Thank you.
He's more than just a sub-decent basketball player.
Yeah. Really?
I'm kidding.
Hey, bro, it's just for fun, bro, for fun.
One of the most impressive, and I don't know why I'm bringing this up, if this is in the timeline of everything, the conversation, but I think I told you this, Jack, and I told Jake and Ben, but one of the things that I thought was fascinating is I absolutely love music. And the first time I met you, you were just one thing is you're very energetic, and it's crazy to hear that you were reserved at one time because you have so much emotion and the way your body language, the way you say things. So I would think you're a natural born entertainer. And to hear your story of it not being that way is crazy. Yeah. But you had this ability, we freestyle rap one time, and I'm like, obviously you have a good voice. But we would freestyle rap. I love freestyle rapping. Yeah. And so Breland and I are freestyle rapping in the car one time.
Wait, you like to personally freestyle rap?
Yes.
Really?
I love it.
I did bars.
I have some bars.
Mac is like a good, like, he's what I would say is like, he's a pretty good freestyler. Like for someone who doesn't make music, he's just like a white dude. Like,
that's me.
He's pretty good, like. Yes, he keeps calling it freestyle rapping. Yeah, for sure.
I just love it because I love the ability to either sing, to rap, whatever it is.
For sure.
I told this Breland to get out emotion for me. Yeah. I'll get in my car, put on a country tune, and it sounds maybe like shit coming from me, but I'll sing something out there. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make sense. I don't know melodies. Sure. My vocabulary is set to like 10 words. But all that to say, when he was able, one of the most fascinating things, I've been around, I've worked with music artists, all this kind of stuff, have some friends who are in the industry, but one of the things that I think is unbelievable is one, your natural voice, and I want to get your no auto-tune on here.
I got you.
But before that, he had a way, so have you freestyle rapped before? Or been?
I mean,
you gotta stop saying rap.
And why are you even laughing?
You gotta stop saying rap at the end of it, bro.
All right.
Have you
freestyled before?
Even I know just to say freestyle.
Yeah. Okay, sorry.
I'm sure
you freestyle. It could be freestyle skateboarding. It could be freestyle. That's why I have to clarify that it's rap. And they look at me and they don't think I'm rapping. I'll tell you what.
Hey, my name is Jack, but I don't drink. Yeah, I like to rap. Tell me what you think, man.
That's about what it would sound like.
I feel like that's the level of freestyle that I believe you could execute.
Yeah, that would be about it. That's why I don't do it.
But he can freestyle. So there's like, I can just ramble words. I can like try to make some sense of some things. And I actually picked this up from you, and I've gotten better at it, and now I can do it a little bit. But Breland literally took a random beat, would freestyle like the beginning of it, because when you freestyle, it's like you're just kind of freestyle. A lot of people can just rhyme, make it like. Then he would turn it into a song. Just sitting in the car, I'm like, really? I'm not gonna lie. I was like, kind of want to record some of these. Like, this is stuff. This is gold. He's like, what's the artist who had the Juice WRLD? Yeah, they said one of the impressive things about Juice WRLD is he could get in the studio and just come up with songs. I was like, this guy is writing platinum records, just sitting in my car freestyling. Like, what is going on?
That is a skill that really has just kind of come from, when you've written thousands of songs, then you kind of do have like. But also like my brain does move pretty quickly when it comes to both melody and lyric. So, it's a useful combination. I think freestyling is one of the few skills that you can actually use that showcase both the ability to like come up with lyrics on the fly and be able to come up with melody on the fly.
Yeah.
And it's not particularly useful because the problem is like when freestyling, I'm liable to say anything, because it's like you have to open your mind up to like whatever the best rhyme is. So like I might be saying things in a freestyle that I'm like, I can't publish this, I would get canceled so fast try to freestyle. Like it's got to be a safe space. But, I would say, maybe one day, if I record enough freestyles and can edit out some of the parts that can't be publicized, then maybe people will get a chance to see that.
And then
the
other cool thing is a lot of artists you can hear. I mean, there's one. I'm not going to bring up the name of this artist, but there's one artist where I heard him record live, and it sounded like absolute trash. It was like I couldn't even understand. It was like, and then it was like sounding good when they were producing it, but it sounded horrible. But he knew how to work the tune.
Auto-tune,
The auto-tune.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things I was showing them as well, is like your ability to do this. Like a lot of people, look, there's a ton of good voices, but there's some people out there who don't necessarily have the best voice, but they know how to work the auto-tune. And I think it's really rare, especially in today's world, that you have a voice like you do where you're able to do that.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I think, when you grow up in a house like mine, if you're even a little bit flat or a little bit sharp, like everyone will say it, so I could tell when I'm, performing live, I'm like, ooh, this is a guy, certain things that could be a little better. Now, live performance is a little different because you're not just focused on like, technical accuracy of notes. You're trying to entertain people and trying to tell a story and trying to, physically engage them by moving around on stage. And so you're going to sacrifice a few notes in the pursuit of a better overall performance. But, in the studio and in situations where I'm just focusing on trying to sing something as perfectly as possible. Yeah. I mean, I definitely would say that I've got, a pretty high level of being able to match pitch and to be able to sit in the center of notes and to be able to control my voice and where it's going and kind of improvise on the fly.
Can you give us like a little bit of something that like
Oh, what you want?
like what do we want to hear, Jack?
We could save it to the acapella too if you want to do that.
Yeah, but I want to hear it on here as well, like just a little something on here that like shows the auto tune. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean.
Let me turn it on real quick.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, it's all just like being able to match pitch. Like I can do a lot of like pretty crazy runs, like yeah, just get I can move around off
Dude, I wish you could see these hairs on my arm.
But if you were to play, if I were gonna just, read this sign and try to turn this into a country song, I don't really even play instruments like that, but theoretically, I'd be like, Johnny Cash and Jerry Lee Lewis, Carl Perkins on Columbia Records. These survivors, and I'm chilling at the house with a couple good friends and we're having a good time. Whatever. I can just make up melodies on the spot and be like, whatever. Like,
wow.
But I could do something like that for any genre.
Okay, Johnny Cash, listen,
Sure.
just hear me out. Johnny Cash called this farm the center of the universe.
I mean,
something. Sing something.
Okay, let's
Come on.
see.
That's right. That's
cool.
something to work with.
Center of the universe. That no one is seen. Oh, the center of the universe. Hey, that stays between you and me. You know what I mean? That's just a classic old school type country melody. Real simple lyric,
So
you know.
fascinating.
But like, you know, that's songs are like
You know-
for me, songs are easy to make. Like,
Dude.
yeah,
Yeah, we really appreciate that, buddy. Thank you.
There you go. He's like, chop that up. You got it? Did you get it? Yeah.
33.
Yes, we got it, man. That's all us.
This is why I'm saying we need to get in the studio more often.
He came with the concept, though,
That's
so
right.
I wouldn't have come up with that otherwise. So I'll give it to you.
That was like something specific though, because you were talking about kind of the Nashville way of writing versus kind of the LA, which is like if you have 75, there's a lawyer sitting there typing it down that you have 75, right?
Yeah.
Do you have some pros and cons from different places? Because you'll have LA, New York, and Nashville all completely different spots.
Yeah, LA, Nashville, and I would say Atlanta, where I've had a lot of experience, are all very different. And I think what makes them different is the way that each of those genres work culturally. So like country music is such a small community of people that are doing this at the highest level. So like, you know, you got a guy like Ashley Gorley who's written, you know, over 60 number ones, which is the most that any person has had in any genre, right? And then there's a few other people that have like 20 number ones and 15, you know, if you listen to the radio right now, you're going to hear a bunch of songs that like Hardy and Ernest wrote, you know, and like, you know, so like there's only a few people that are really doing this at the highest level. And I think all of those people, they have to do good business because there are, you know, if you can't really make it to that point in country music if you aren't doing good business and treating people well, because people will be like, we're just not going to continue to work with you. I think in hip hop, it's a little different. Also, like hip hop, I think one of the bigger differences in how hip hop music is written and produced is like, it's not always as collaborative as in country music. So in country music, it's going to be a group of us that sit down in a room and kind of all go back and forth about certain lyrics and certain lines and how we want to hook this song and what the punchline is going to be. And it tends to be more like that. Whereas in hip hop, you might have someone that just goes into a booth, records a bunch of stuff, and then I'm going to go into the booth next and I'm going to record whatever ideas I have. And it's a lot more off the top, a lot more freestyle based, just based on the way that a lot of writing gets created, you know, writing gets done in Atlanta now. And so it is a little bit harder, I think, to quantify what that looks like because you're not actually like really working with some of the people that you're in the room with. It's a bunch of people that are trying to get their ideas heard. And so I think then you end up in a situation where it's like, okay, well, all of my melodies ended up being the final melodies that we chose and none of yours did. So I feel like I should have more of this percentage, you know. LA is a little different too because, you know, there's a lot of people, like LA to me isn't really that different in the writing room, but to even get into some of those rooms, there's a lot of like, it's kind of clout based, like, well, what have you done? Well, you know, who have you worked with?
Yeah.
What number ones do you have? Like, who do you know? And then, you know, certain writers won't even give someone else a chance if they don't feel like they're on their level. And I think that's just kind of more of an LA mentality, whereas Nashville is a really small town. You could meet somebody at, you know, Red Door or, you know, after a whiskey jam or whatever. And there's a number of events that happen in town and over the course of the year that you could meet someone that knows someone that is willing to help connect the dots for you to be able to help you get where you need to go. That it's so small and so interconnected that I just think people have to do better business because you really can't survive for long if you don't.
You're not only a spectacular entertainer and incredibly talented, but you're just a good dude.
Thanks, bro.
Just a good guy, man.
Try to be decent.
No, it's great. I mean,
it's important. That's all we have at the end of the day. All we really have is our reputation and the way that we make people feel.
absolutely. I remember my my daughter's a singer, Madison, and she's in LA now. She was out here for a long time, and she did this deal with somebody, and I had this idea. I'm like, look, you need to capitalize on this song. It's really big. Do a cover of this song. Yeah. So she partnered up with this other guy. I'm not going to say who it was. They did the song together. Did I tell you about this song? Yeah. It's yeah. So they did this song together, and his whole thing was because we didn't know really anything about the music business to this extent that we do now, and we know the YouTube world, we know the Facebook world. Right. That's what we know. So
do I know your daughter?
I don't think so.
Okay,
but they did the song, and then it became. Yeah, you guys just keep go ahead and keep YouTube. That's fine with me, and I'll keep I'll put it on the streaming sites and stuff, and I'll keep that part of it. And that was about all we knew, and all we really. And all,
well, I know where this is going. I know where this is going. Go ahead.
Yeah. So here's the thing: is we're going. Well, number one, it's a cover,
right?
Anyway, so big deal, and we know the online. We know YouTube. So okay, cool. Wow, she can monetize it on YouTube, right? Sure. Okay, so. We did all of this stuff, and then we thought it was kind of a friendship deal. So then her manager kind of stepped in, found out about it, and was like, "What are you guys, nuts?" So then he went in and negotiated a very different deal. He's like, "Look, if he's going to do all the work on this and all the work on that, he did the music video, he's doing all this, 75's probably fair for him, but you got to get 25 because if this song hits on streaming." And sure enough, this has been not a tremendous amount of money, but like every couple of months, she gets a check for like $600, or whatever. And this has been going on for over 2 years, and it's still like it really took off. Had we not fought to get something, it would have been over like after the first month or two or whatever. And it kind of opened our eyes though to the fact that this dude knew exactly what he was doing. He knew what he was, and he had connections on Spotify and all this kind of stuff to get it in the playlist, do all the stuff that he does. I don't know. And that's how it was. So it really did kind of, I've always known that it was like a shady business or whatever, but that was our first experience and kind of going, wow, you really got to watch out for people that you think you really, and also sometimes I feel like there's a fine line, it seems like, between somebody who wants to just do you dirty versus somebody who's just a good businessman. You have to discern that. Yeah. Like who's just looking out for because everybody's kind of in a sense looking out for their own best interest.
Look out. I know people are going to look out for themselves. Are you looking out for yourself in a way that is going to be at the expense of someone else? Or are you looking out for yourself in a way that is going to benefit everyone that you're doing it with? Because I'm always going to look out for myself as a business person, but I'm also going to do it. What you're talking about is integrity. What you're really talking about is, do you have integrity or not?
That's right.
If you don't have integrity, you might be making very similar types of decisions, but they're going to affect everyone else differently. Yeah. And I think in music, it's really hard to know. I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry with probably trillions of dollars in overall reach and impact that is almost all done on handshake deals. Yeah. There's no other industry that is that big that is running on, he told me that this is what we were going to do, And
yeah, it's true.
That's how music, it is nuts. That's how music gets done, man. I mean, like it's an interesting industry too, because now in the streaming world, like it's just different, right? Like I could have a song that a million people could listen to my song and I could make $500. Whereas 20 years ago, if 1 million people listened to my song, I would make $1 million. Mm-hmm. It's
crazy.
It's just different. Like we are in an era where everyone has access to everything all the time. Yeah. And it makes it a lot trickier to actually figure out where things are getting monetized and what percentage of it you should have. And, that's why we all try to do good business when, for me and the guys that I work with and the girls that I work with, I mean, we all do great business and we all care about the creatives and making sure that people get paid.
That's awesome. Awesome. Thanks, brother. You got any more questions, Mac?
No.
You good? Dude,
Yeah.
thank you so much, man,
Yeah,
for
dude,
coming.
thanks for
This
having
is
me,
so
brother.
rad. I love
know,
this.
it's
Yeah.
fire.
Thanks,
Easy.
man.
For sure.
Kiss my cat.